Hello and welcome to the agenda today. I am Chike Obogu. I'm coming to you live from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Today we'll delve into a topic that is all too familiar in times of crisis. How can the leakages be fixed? Whether it is food aid during economic hardship, or is it cash transfers in pandemics, or emergency supplies after disasters? Palliatives are meant to cushion the vulnerable. But too often, they end up in the wrong hands. Have you received a palliative recently? Why does this happen? Getting into the wrong hands. And what can we do about it? So, joining me today to discuss this and make some sense out of this is Comrade Ignatius Ofino, an economist and a public affairs commentator. Welcome to the show, Comrade Ignatius Ofino.
Good morning, Mazi Chike Obogu.
Well, let me leave that part. Because I
want to appeal to the Ohaneze Ndigbo that they have an illustrious son by the name Mazi Chike Obogu, that he deserves to be given a chieftaincy title in Igbo land.
In Igbo land?
Yes.
To have a chieftaincy title?
Yes. So that he becomes a member of the Red Cap Chief.
Okay. In my hometown, they call them Agbalanze.
Agbalanze.
But I don't think I'm caught up for that for now. I prefer to serve humanity.
Wow.
Than to pick up a red cap that would not serve the purpose.
But if your people now decide to celebrate their illustrious son.
The same people who spend the money they don't have to make me a chief, let them take care of themselves. I'm a chief already in my own space.
Wow.
It's good to have you on the agenda this morning, Comrade Ofino.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here this morning, as usual.
Let's jump right into the discussion of today, Ignatius. And for our listener who might be new to this, I know many people want to ask palliative. There's a Yoruba word for it, Ironwo, or thereabout. There's what they call it in Yoruba. Now, there's also the distribution, and there is elite capture too. Can you make some sense from what the palliative is, the palliative distribution, and then also what do we understand by the elite capture?
Thank you very much. Martin Luther King Jr. asserted that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. I repeat again. Martin Luther King Jr. asserted that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Now, when you are talking about elite capture, I'm going to explain it subjectively and objectively.
Okay.
Subjectively, when we say elite capture, it's a form of corruption and skewed governance or misappropriation by small, powerful, and group of elites who monopolizes resources, grants, aids, social benefit that is intended for the broader population. That is the subjective definition of what we call elite capture. But when you are talking about the objective definition, it simply means the conspiracy theory or the conspiracy of the elite against the masses. Because they have decided to introduce what we call poverty as a weapon against the masses. So what they are now doing now is this. The resources that is meant for the broader population, for the larger majority, they now decide to determine who and who gets what and how in a limited form. So when you are talking about palliative now, palliative is a medical term. is just like a temporary measure trying to administer what we call a therapy that will just relieve the pain of a patient that is ill on a temporary basis without even providing permanent solution. So when we are talking about palliative in this sense, we are talking about what we call welfare relief package that the government provide on a temporary basis just to caution the effect of radical economic reforms or harsh economic reforms, or if the economy is experiencing what we call depression or recession, the government want to go by the way of palliative. But the word palliative itself is a medical term. It does not solve the solution. It does not provide permanent solution to the problem. It's just it's just a superficial approach.
That's a cushion.
Just to cushion the effect. But here in Nigeria today, the elite capture is one of the problems that is actually affecting governance in this country.
So why do we then have a regular occurrence of diversion, especially when it comes to palliative distribution?
Do you know why? Because it has become politicized, one. Because two, they believe that the people will not revolt against them. The people that are oppressed. There is difference between capital infrastructure being seen as a right, and on the other way around, being seen as a privilege. In Nigeria today, capital infrastructure ought to be a basic right, but now it is being seen as a privilege. We have some communities in Nigeria today that are being deprived of basic right to capital project just because they don't have a good representation at the National Assembly. Is it supposed to be so? In Senate line, capital infrastructure happen to be your basic rights as citizens. So when we are talking about welfare package or social benefit, supposed to be your inalienable right as a citizen of that country. But today, because poverty has been weaponized in Nigeria, it becomes a privilege. Then politicians themselves, they are in charge of the distribution. They want to use it as a way of trying to source for campaign, for vote.
We are coming there. You know, you've talked about weaponizing poverty. And now you're talking about campaigns for votes. We are coming there. But before we get there, I want us to look at the greed factor. The greed factor in the elite capture. How can it be curbed?
Aristotle made an assertion. He said there is enough for everyone's need, but there isn't enough for everyone's greed. And Mahatma Gandhi also supported that philosophical maxim. He also said the same thing. He said there is enough for everyone's need, but there isn't enough for everyone's greed.
It means man's greed is insatiable.
Insatiable. Human want is unlimited, but resources are what? Scarce and limited. So you have to learn to control your insatiable what? Greed as a human being. There is one thing you must also believe as well. Human dignity. Human dignity. If you love someone, you will not haunt them. You will not deprive them of their basic rights. It's a failure of the ruling elite. So that is why we keep saying and saying it over and over again. There is what we call the conspiracy theory. And there is also what we call the conspiracy of the elite against the masses. But freedom and slavery is a choice. You can choose to be free, and you can also choose not to be free. It's a choice. So when we are talking about the issue of palliative in this country, what the people want is better life. That is what Nigerians want. But because poverty has been weaponized in this country, the people now see palliative as a privilege, not just a privilege, a golden privilege and a golden opportunity.
The withholding of these palliatives and the uneven distribution.
Yes.
Do you see it as a systemic issue?
It's a systemic issue.
Okay.
Very systemic. The so-called ruling elite, they want to ensure that the poverty that is being weaponized in this country is sustainable over time. They don't want the oppressed to be liberated. They don't also want the oppressed to be educated. There is what we call mental incapacitation. You must liberate yourself. When you liberate yourself, you can be able to know your right from your left. You can be able to know the right from the wrong. But it's just unfortunate that the so-called oppressed or the so-called masses in this country, they are now becoming gullible. Gullible. You must decide your destiny. The choice is in your hand. The ball is in your own court as an individual. So when I see the masses voting for people who deprive you of better life, people who deprive you of capital infrastructure, people who deprive you of quality healthcare delivery system, people who deprive you of quality education, what do you say about that? Is it now the fault of the ruling elite or the fault of the oppressed?
But this issue of palliative distribution and the elite capture is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. If you follow what's been happening in India, even during their public distribution system for food, studies have even shown that about 40%, there was about 40% leakage due to elite capture in India. Why is it more prevalent among developing nations?
Now it's very prevalent.
Among developing countries?
Yes, it's bound to be prevalent because there's a difference between developing country and what? Developed country. When we are talking about developed country, it is established by law. Law is law there, but in most developing countries, laws are being violated. Fundamental human rights too are being violated without consequence. So when we are talking about the elite capture becoming so functional in developing country, it's bound to occur. Now, the ruling class, they are just a microcosm of the larger society. They want to hold on to power. But the so-called oppressed, they are not willing to liberate themselves from the siege of the oppressor. No one will give you permission to be free. You only need courage to be free. But courage is something the oppressor cannot give or take. The oppressor will never give you courage. But when you have courage to liberate yourself, the oppressor himself or herself cannot take it away from you. So the masses themselves have more blame than the ruling elite. The ruling elite is just like a cabal. They want to hold on to what? To power. But the masses that are being oppressed, they are not even willing for a change.
And that's why it affects developing countries.
As well too.
But you see, when you say the oppressed are the ones who are not willing for a change, there are so many oppressed who protest. The oppressed protests. However, in the course of protests, you find out that their courage is being subdued by this miniature elitist group that you call the cabal, so to speak. Not only in Nigeria, it also happens in some places in the world, especially developing countries. Now, is it about they not having the courage, or that they have the courage, but they are being suppressed by what, in quotes, is called the democracies that we practice around the world today?
Yes, I agree with you. I quite agree with you. But there is something that is very germane. Let's trace history back. Mahatma Gandhi. He preached what we call non-violence. So India got her independence from Britain through non-violent approach that was being deployed and adopted by who? Mahatma Gandhi. You know what Gandhi did? He went to the poorest of the poor. He identified with them. He ate with them. So the masses themselves need a leader that will come out from them. Not someone who is from the elite. Because he's been dissatisfied with the elite. He's coming from the elite now. He wants to liberate the masses. You know, he's not from them.
But the same oppressed who need a leader from themselves will find out that these same oppressed people, whoever becomes their leader, gets into a system that is dysfunctional, a system that would make him or her corrupt and go against the oppressed who brought him out. So, hence, we say the issue of growth and development is not only about leadership, it's also about followership too. The followers too get compromised at some point along the line.
Do you know why? It's their mindset. We need men and women that are refined in character.
To re-engineer
yes,
their mindset.
They have to change their orientation.
Who does that for them?
Among themselves.
They have to do it for themselves?
Yes, among themselves.
Even in the local parlance, you find out that when you give people things to share, just local setting, you give people things to share. One person wants to take more than the others.
Greed. The greed instinct is natural. You have to control it.
Does it live more with the oppressed or with the oppressor?
Both.
Okay.
There is one thing I keep telling myself, that one day the Almajiris shall be liberated. I have a dream that one day the Almajiris in the north will be liberated. And the only person that will liberate them is someone from among them. That enough is enough. So we have to understand what actually goes on. Poverty is being weaponized in this country, but it is not an excuse for you to remain oppressed. Because no one that was born into the world was born with chains and fetters. Everyone was born free. So it's greed that is actually affecting the oppressed. The greed among each individual. Individuals among them. There is what we call collective struggle. You will only win if it is a mass revolt. But if it is just an individual revolt, you cannot win. That has been the problem. The greed among the oppressed. Some of them, let me give you an example. We have seen union leaders in this country. At the end of the day, union leaders, we are always on the mantra of what? Socialism. That they are fighting for the rights of their members and the rights of the Nigerian masses. When they had the opportunity to be in the helm of affairs as governor, from being a socialist, they are now capitalists.
You're talking about former governor of Edo State.
Yes, Comrade Adam Aliyu Oshomole. He was a socialist. He was a Marxist when he was the union leader, the Nigerian Labour Congress. But by the time he became the executive governor of Edo State, lo and behold, he became a capitalist. Until date, Oshomole is a capitalist. Forget about that conductor he used to wear. Forget about it. No wonder this man, the man that wrote this book, The Prince. Machiavelli. Niccolo Machiavelli. You know what he said? He said, politicians are typically held in low esteem because they are perceived to be power-seeking hypocrites who conceal personal ambition and hide behind the rhetorics of public service. So sometimes when I look at Senator Comrade Adams Oshomole, I weep because he was supposed to lead and become a good example when we are talking about the union struggle that is being defined and founded upon the Marxist ideal. Unionism is founded upon the socialist ideal, not upon the capitalist ideal. And we have someone. They compensated him even when his mandate was stolen in Edo State election. People stood for him. They fought for him until he got that mandate back. But at the end of the day, what happened? Oshomole himself became a capitalist. How do you explain that? So probably Joe Ajaero one day we also want to become the executive governor of Imo State. I wouldn't know.
Well, remember, you can send your tweets via the app X at DominionCast. Use the hashtag #TheAgendaIbadan. I'll read out your comments, your questions, and your observations on the program this morning. We are with Ignatius Ofino discussing palliative distribution and the elite capture. Ignatius, let's drill down. What are the main reasons relief materials miss the mark? What are the main reasons they miss the mark?
Sometimes, during the COVID-19 crisis in the world, some states in Nigeria decided to go by the way of lockdown because they never wanted the virus to spread. Now, there was issue.
The alleged virus.
Yes. Yeah. There was serious allegation between the state government not receiving the actual palliative meant for their state. Some were even complaining that the palliative material given to them has expired. You know, His Excellency Engineer Sheyi Makinde also raised an eyebrow against the federal government that the rice they brought for your state has expired. So I'm talking about a country that believes in human dignity. When we are talking, look at the way the West distributed their own palliative during the COVID-19 crisis, that pandemonium that happened in the world. It was well distributed. At your doorsteps, you pick your own. But if it was in Nigeria, one person can pick 10 different palliative that is meant for 10 different people. It's our greed. The greed factor is actually affecting us in this country. What is meant for 10 persons, an individual will want to take it. Me, myself, and I instinct. Greed. That is one of the problems we're having in this country. When we are talking about palliative is just a welfare package or a relief that the government introduced to cushion the economic effect of certain radical reforms. It can be harsh economic reforms. It's just a temporary measure, just like a first aid treatment that you administer to an ailing patient. That will not solve the problem. But this country, now, rather than the government to find a way of solving the problem in this country, the government have decided to adopt palliative measures, which is wrong.
You know, sometimes these palliatives we discuss about what they are really meant for, like you said, are temporary measures.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you find out that they are not used for what they're meant to be used for. Some of them are stored in some warehouse somewhere, and at some point they get damaged. And Nigerians are out there hungry, looking for even a temporary measure to survive and sustain themselves. I'm coming there because we'll be looking at why they stock up these palliatives and wait during elections to share these palliatives, maybe because of poverty as a weapon. But we're coming there. Let's look at social media's role. It's an interesting role, the role of social media. Is there any way technology helps to expose this irregular palliative distribution, or even to enable it? What are the pros and cons of social media in this issue?
There's a populist mantra in this country, maxim. There's a populist maxim in this country that says, if you see something, you say something. Be a whistleblower. But at whose cost?
How many whistleblowers have survived?
Yes, at whose cost? Those that are ruling us in this country, they are very powerful, but few but powerful than the rest of us. When we are talking about security, they are in charge. We are talking about economic, financial resources, they are in charge. We are talking about the justice system. They control the justice system in this country. So there is a problem on ground. If you want to become a whistleblower on the social media platform, so that is why some people will not say, sometimes when you want to become a whistleblower, your family members becomes your enemy too. They call you names. Are you the only one? Must you say everything you see? Must you say everything you see? They want to persecute you. Because of the system that we are, there must be consequence for violation. Palliative distribution should go to the target population. And the refusal for it not to get to the target population, there must be violation. We are talking about palliative. What about the issue of international grants that the World Bank and IMF usually give to countries? Do you know that in Nigeria today, most of these international grants does not go to the right target groups? It's not. Sometimes the World Bank will tell us that they gave Nigeria some grants. Nigerians don't see that grant. But the Nigerian government will now publish names of what? Recipients. Ghost names. So World Bank, IMF, international organization that usually give us what we call grant, they should monitor that grant to know if actually these grants are getting to the right persons. That is how it should be. And if it doesn't get to the right person, the country should be sanctioned. There must be consequence for violation. Countries are being established by law. So that is why America is powerful today. America is not powerful because it has produced weapons. No!
So who sanctions?
The donor agency.
Should sanction?
Should sanction. But on the part of the government now, the federal government giving palliative to governors to distribute, and the governor refuse to distribute it, the governor should be sanctioned.
Okay, studies from the IMF shows that in low trust societies, up to 50% of aid can be lost in the way. Now, how does this impact on the poorest when you see some of these aid missing in transit?
They were not missing.
They are not missing?
Yes, they were stolen and diverted by a human being. We are talking about human dignity. No mother that love the child, we want that child to die. You know our mothers, they love babies. They love their baby. Even if the child has committed a crime, the mom does not want you to kill him or her. The child, can you not forgive my child? I know my child has committed a wrong. I'm talking about women. They have affection for their child. That is why countries that you see women governing, those countries, they used to perform well. Because women, they have compassionate feeling more than men. I have to be frank and sincere with you. Women have love for humanity more than men themselves. Now, how does he speak? In America today, we have what called the black elite system in America. That is being established by the conspiracy theory. Is there? Jesse Jackson is also a member. The black elite system in America.
Although he's late now.
He's late now. But now, when you look at what is actually happened, the blacks in America are still being oppressed by fellow blacks. So when you're talking about the black elite system in America, you are talking about the few blacks who are also part of the ruling elite in America. So when we are talking about elite capture, is there too? Is it supposed to be? Why should the blacks oppress the blacks?
So bottom line, those aids, they don't get, nothing really happened to them on the way. They were only stolen, according to you.
Yes, they were stolen, diverted, hijacked. And sometimes the politician will steal them and also use it as one of what? As for campaign.
So we're getting there now, where you talked about hijacking. On a lighter note, some would say, oh, these aids were kidnapped on their way down to the poorest of the poor. Yes. But then you want to ask, who again is the poorest of the poor?
Now, if the poor want to revolt, they will say they are trying to instigate revolution. The poor are more in number than the rich. That is what I know. It
reminds me of the French Revolution. Yes. What caused the uprising in France?
Yes, a loaf of bread.
And it was just a loaf of bread.
A loaf of bread.
Just one loaf of bread.
Yes.
Caused the uprising in France.
The French Revolution.
Yeah, brought about the French Revolution.
Yes.
And today, France is a world power.
Yes.
You know, it's a world power when it comes to international politics. But just a loaf of bread.
The Jacobins were executed.
Let us look at the Nigerian factor. Elections are on the way in a few months' time. Palliative vote buying will be on the rise. The concept of Dibo Ko Sebe will surface. Ignatius Ofino, is this not a period of weaponizing poverty through hoarded palliatives?
Yes. You know, politicians in this country, they have actually succeeded in weaponizing poverty, and there's no consequence for that. The poverty index in Nigeria is high. The rate of unemployment is also high. The standard of living in Nigeria is low. I'm just talking about microeconomic variables now. In Ghana, there was a president, Aru Gara, for 8 years. He also floated his vice president for the presidency. But the Ghanaian now felt that they spent a lot of money. The Ghanaian voters said, no, we don't want your money. We don't want your palliative. We are voting this government out of power. And they did. That was what made Professor John Mahama of Ghana to become elected as the current Ghanaian president. The Ghanaian electorate, they stood their ground. They rejected that palliative. They were even saying that Ghana is not the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But look at the poor masses today in Nigeria. They will collect the palliative. After collecting the palliative, they will also vote for their oppressors again. Who does that? A rational thinker will not do that. Why will I continue to vote for someone that is oppressing me? For someone that is depriving me of basic rights? For someone that is denying my children quality healthcare delivery system? That is denying my children quality education? Am I being sensible? It is the fault of the masses, not even the ruling elite anymore.
So now we are going into the election season very soon, because we'll still be, this is more of a sensitization program, an advocacy program, and even setting agenda, not for government, but for the masses too. Now, many people, many of our politicians would have kept some palliatives, waiting for this election period coming to share these palliatives to individuals and say, take this, eat, drink, and vote for us. You need to be very careful. Don't sell your future. The palliatives are temporary measures. They were supposed to have been distributed long time ago. Let me also warn you, when you are picking up palliatives or whatever it is from politicians this time around, please check the expiry period, the expiry date. Don't go and pick something you take home and is expired. It has its own health hazards.
Yes.
It has its health hazards. They might help you. You might help them vote at that time. But would you be alive to see through 6 months, 8 months into their inauguration? Stay alive and vote with your conscience. Don't let yourself be bought by some, piecemeal. Don't allow poverty be a weapon for you. Don't do that. See yourself as living above poverty. You can subdue it, not for election gains. You can subdue it for the future of Nigeria. Ignatius Ofino.
Yeah, thank you.
It is,
Mazi,
it is something I want you to also lend your voice on this. Well, you need to set an agenda for the oppressed, for the people, for the electorate, who are going to be going out en masse in a bit, in some months' time. And I want them to hear your voice, your own stand, your own agenda for them. Let's set agenda. It's unfortunate that agenda setting is fast eroding. Well, let's use this medium to also set agenda. If you've been following our discourse, if people have been following our discourse on the agenda, we are deliberately and consciously trying to set agenda for both government and the people. Ignatius Ofino.
Sovereignty belongs to the people. Power is derived from below, not from above. That is why Abraham Lincoln said, he said, democracy is the government of the people, by the people and for the people. The resources belong to the people. Sovereignty belongs to the people. There is one thing that just dropped into my mind now. One of the assertions made by Malcolm X. You know what he said? He said they will pay one of us to kill one of us just to say it was one of us. It's the conspiracy theory.
Divide and rule.
Yes. They will pay one of us to kill one of us just to say it was one of us. That was what Malcolm X asserted. And it's true. The masses themselves has been brainwashed to the extent that they become gullible, to the extent that they depend on what we call divine providence. There is a difference between divine providence and basic responsibility of government to the people. The government must provide capital infrastructure to the people. The government must provide power supply to the people. The government must provide security to the people. It's not about divine providence. But the masses have been so brainwashed in this country, they become gullible to divine providence. And it's a big problem. Among the masses today, how many of them are willing to liberate themselves from the siege of oppression? That was why I said earlier that freedom and slavery is a choice. You can choose to be free, and you can also choose not to be free. But there is nothing as good as freedom. Do you know what this man said? Rolilala Madiba. Viva Madiba. Nelson Mandela. He said a lean freedom is better than a fat slavery. The masses need to change their orientation about public governance. Why should I continue to vote for someone that keeps oppressing me and is not willing to change? Am I then rational as a human being? So the masses are more to blame than the ruling elite. The oppressors will never want the oppressed to gain freedom.
Choose ye this day what you want, to be free or to be a slave. Powerful points from Ignatius Ofino. Let's hear from you, dear listener. You can send your messages via the app X to the handle @DominionCast. I'll dive into your messages after this break. Stick around. Don't move a muscle. All right, welcome back from that short break. It is the agenda with Ignatius Ofino. We've covered the whys. Now we're looking at the how. What practical fixes can plug these leakages, Ofino? So we just go straight to the questions. Let's get to hear from you. We've talked about why. Now, how do we fix it? What are the measures to blocking these leakages? In just a minute thereabout.
William Shakespeare wrote in one of his literary works, and what did he say? He said there are two forces that govern the world, the forces of good and the forces of evil, each trying to oppose the other. Among two evils, you go for the lesser evil. The masses themselves know their oppressors, so they should choose their leader among themselves. People are saying that the cost of governance in Nigeria is high. That when you want to buy forms from this so-called capitalist party, I call them capitalist parties, that you have to get 100 million to get a presidential ticket. I don't care if you call it 1 billion naira. I don't care. The masses among themselves, they should congregate together, form their own masses, their own political party. They can call it the Masses Party of Nigeria. They can give it a name. And among themselves, they choose leader among themselves across the 36 states of the Federation. But there is one thing you must understand in this country, that there is a moral question. The rich knows themselves, but the poor, they don't know themselves.
Interesting.
Because most of them always want to hide and pretend. You know you are poor, but you are pretending as if all is well with you.
The rich know themselves,
yes,
but the poor don't know themselves. Well, let's go to your tweets now. Abidemi is saying, I have seen palliatives go to rich folks in my area. How can ordinary people report this without fear? Interesting.
Definitely, that is what we call free speech. There is free speech.
There's freedom of speech.
Yeah,
freedom after speech.
You can report the matter to the media. Okay. The media will not use that matter. They won't mention your name. It becomes what? Anonymous. I'm a public affairs analyst. People like us, we talk about it. I always like speaking truth to power. That has been my hobby.
So because there's free speech, Abidebi should go ahead and report to the media.
To the media.
Okay. Onlariwaju is saying here, Ignatius, is elite capture worse in democracies or dictatorships?
There is one thing you must understand. Both of them are Siamese twins. Dictatorship and elite capture. It's just like someone that stole 1,000 naira. If he has opportunity to steal 1 million, he will do the same. It's the instinct. You know, there was one time Chief Olusegun Obasanjo accused some of our governors that they are living like emperor. Is that not true? It's true. He has been in the corridor of power. So for him to have said that some governors in Nigeria today, they are behaving like emperor. One of the characteristics of emperor is what? Dictatorship or the fascist government. They don't want anybody to raise objection. They always take what we call unilateral decision. You know, sometimes Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is being accused of being a fascist.
Wow.
Yes, the way he runs his government.
He's a Democrat. So
no!
how is
unilateral decision.
How is
the unilateral
fascism?
removal of the oil subsidy was a living example. It's there. Who does that? There must be consultation. There must be consultation. There must be consultation.
What if he consulted before that announcement?
I wouldn't know whether he consulted, and I don't think he everly consulted.
Because of
He
the
follow
local
his
affair.
mind. He always follow his mind. Whatever his mind tells him, that is what he
On a
does.
lighter note, does his mind deceive him or does his
I
mind,
wouldn't know whether his mind deceives him because I don't live inside his mind.
but
But
some of
assuming
his-
I was living inside his mind, I would have said, Mr. President, the time has come for you to adopt what we call a socialist system of government. Couple it together with this present state of governance. Capitalism plus welfareism. The people of Nigerians are actually hungry. The state of poverty in Nigeria is high. If I was actually living inside the mind of Mr. President, because me, I love humanity.
Okay. Donatus is saying, what about the international aid? So I guess what Donatus is saying here is the international aid being given to third world countries, given to developing countries, might be a bait. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Yes, it's usually a bait. I'm not even in support of international grant and aid because that's what we call dead in AIDS. It's a trap. It's a trap. The capitalist institution, they don't care.
So
what
since
they are
they
more
know-
interested is profit.
Yeah, but since they know it's a trap, since the capitalists or the bourgeois know that it's a trap, don't you think that's why they act the way they act? By trying to hoard it. Let's hoard this trap. Let's not get it to the people.
But are they being fair? The elite captor.
Yeah.
The elite, the ruling elite, are they being fair? Probably they are trying to tell us that they are playing politics without morality. When
Politics
you play
without morality.
when you play politics with morality and civility, you will show compassion to everyone. It's just like when you have 3 kids, you know the one who is the most senior among them. So when mommy want to dish out food for them, you dish out based on what? Seniority. Mommy will not allow the last born to pick the food first. No. Because the tendency is there for the last born to pick the biggest what? Dish. The biggest dish is not meant for that, for the last born. It's meant for what? For who? The firstborn.
Okay, so I have a whole lot of questions here. However, our time is fast spent. Ibrahim Faro is saying, good morning, Chike and Ignatius. With the recent accusations from the Zamfara governor that 500 billion naira palliative funds are only going to APC states, is this elite capture at the federal level now turning into open political favoritism? How can we stop palliatives from becoming election tools and turning national funds into political weapons? What institutional safeguards could prevent this from becoming the norm?
There is a way you can be able to do it. Those who are oppressing you, vote them out of power. That becomes the consequence. That's the consequence. Now, there is an allegation leveled against this government that the palliative distribution in this country has been going to APC state. Probably it's one of the reasons why some governors are trying to defect or have defected. And if care is not taken, Nigeria risk becoming a one-party system. And the beauty of democracy is this: you must have a strong opposition. If you are practicing democracy and there is no opposition, that is not democracy.
All right.
Any country where we have a one-party state and there is no opposition, that is not democracy.
All right. Thank you, Ignatius Ofino,
Thank you for having me.
for shedding light on palliative distribution and elite capture today. Thank you so much for being there this
you for
morning.
having me, Chief.
Well, to our dear listener, remember, change starts with awareness. Let's demand better systems. I am Chike Ubogu saying, stay informed, stay engaged. Let's keep changing the status quo. Let's keep setting the agenda. Remember, the ball is in your court. It's either you liberate yourself or you remain a slave. Good morning and enjoy your day.